Nice to see you all once again, and some of you are new. Now, before we start, I want to just start with reminding why we start Children's Parliament, just for 2 minutes. And as we know, Children's Parliament is one of the 3 units in neighborocracy. Neighborocracy is a system of governance in place of democracy. Because we all of us are aware that democracy has not lived up to the aspirations of the people. So we are promoting a new system of governance which starts from the neighborhood, which is federated at higher levels. And this system of governance is called neighborocracy. And in neighborocracy, we have 3 units in every neighborhood. That is Children Parliament, from the age of for the children from the age of 6 to 18. Then we have Youth Parliament from the age of 20 to 25. Then we have the Adult Neighborhood Parliament from the age of 26 and above. So, these 3 units are part of this system of governance. And in this system of governance, one speciality is, unlike democracy, even a child of 6 years old is part of an active and effective day-to-day governance. So no other system which has introduced this. So that's why we give more importance to the Children Parliament in the neighborhood. And we call it Inclusive Neighborhood Children Parliament. And we saw all this in detail last week. And today we are going to see how we are going to start this. Now, there are 3 approaches. One is a movement approach. The second one is a project approach. And third one is a program approach. Now, whatever the approach is, finally, we want this Children's Parliament to be on a movement mode, movement approach. Most of the time, the NGOs, those who are having lots of children's programs, take this as another project. And they start in their neighborhood. And they continue with all their good intentions and with all their facilities and resources available to the maximum level. And one point of time, they may stop this project because project is closed. Then we have programs. There are various other organizations, social organizations, religious organizations, even schools. They have it as a program in their working areas or in the schools. And they also continue this. And they do well. And depending on the people, those who are in charge of the schools or the organizations. One HM or headmaster or headmistress may be very much interested in this and may be doing it very well. But when that headmistress is transferred to some other school, the new headmistress may come and that person may not look at it at a very interesting program, and they may stop it or they may make it fade. And even in the organization, some organization heads may be very interested in this and they may start doing it. And when that person is transferred and another person comes, again the same fate the Children Parliament faces. And that's what we've been seeing for past 20 plus years. So we give more focus to make it a movement approach. When it is a movement, every person who is interested in this, need not be only an organization, need not be only NGO, need not be only school. Every individual, whoever is here, if you are interested in this, you can start in your own area. And this becomes a movement. For this, no fund is required, no special staffs are required, and no special teachers are required. As me, as an individual, I start in my own neighborhood. And for this, to meet people in my neighborhood and meet the children in my neighborhood, money is not required. And I'm not going to spend all my day for this, because all the days the children will be engaged in the schools or in their online classes or whatever it is in the weekdays. So we need to spend only 2 hours a week. So to spend 2 hours a week, any person can do it. And that's why we want this to be on a movement mode. Now, how to start this? I will start with the neighborhood children's parliament, as I said, where the children's parliaments are established in the neighborhood by the NGOs or social organizations or whatever it is. There is a procedure which we have to follow, because this movement, this structure is not a temporary phenomena. We want this to be a permanent structure of the children in that particular neighborhood. So the procedure to make it a permanent structure has to be such a way that it sustains itself permanently. Because in the same neighborhood, the children may not be the same, but there are children, they will newly join, and when they become youth, they automatically become part of the youth parliaments. New children will be coming and the older children will be going out. But the children parliament will be there. So that's why we say it has to sustain on a permanent basis. As long as the neighborhood is there, children will be definitely there. The number may be more or less, but there will be children. And how to do it? It's quite interesting, because this is where we ensure the sustainability of the children's parliament permanently. First, we have to demark a neighborhood where we are going to start, whichever is a convenient neighborhood for us to start this. It may be our own neighborhood, or it may be a neighborhood where we work with other programs in the NGO cases. And we have to identify who are the leaders in that particular neighborhood, because every neighborhood has its own leaders. Why we say leaders? Anyone who has influence over people is a leader. So there may be an elected leader, there may be a traditional leader, there may be a religious leader, and there may be an employed leader. Whoever has an influence over people is a leader. Now, who are the elected leaders whom people vote and elect? It may be a ward member, it could be a councillor, it could be the panchayat president, or it could be the MLA or MP if they are within our reach. Identify these leaders. Then we have to find out traditional leaders. When we say traditional leaders, there are certain communities where the leadership comes generation after generation. The father will be the leader, then his son will be the leader, then his grandson will be the leader. It goes on like that. They are called community leaders or traditional leaders. In some communities, we have that. And they have a very high influence over people. Then we have the third, religious leaders. In that particular area, there may be people belonging to various religious practices. There may be Hindus, there may be Muslims, there may be Christians and all. These leaders may not be living in that, perhaps in the same neighborhood. They may be living elsewhere, but they have a connection to this neighborhood and they have certain influence over this neighborhood. So even if they are not living in that place, you'll have to identify who are they. For example, when we say Hindu religious leaders, there may be a temple nearby. There may be a pujari who makes puja in the temple. He is a religious leader. There may be an astrologer living in that neighborhood or in the vicinity of the neighborhood. These astrologers also have very good influence over people. Then there may be people, experts on Vastu Shastra. They may be living there. So they are all called religious leaders. And they may be, if there is a temple run by the government, there may be a leader of the temple trust or whatever it is. And we say trustee of the temple. So they are called religious leaders. And in the Muslim context, there may be a Maulvi who conducts the namaz in the nearby mosque. And he has a very high influence over the Muslim brothers and sisters those who live in that particular neighborhood. So he is a religious leader. Then we have, if there are Christians, if there are Catholics, definitely that people belong to a particular parish. So that parish priest or the convent where the sisters live, or if they belong to the other sector of the Christian denominations, they may be pastors. So they all have very high influence over these people. So they are called religious leaders. Then we have employed leaders. Now these employed leaders are the NGO staff, the teachers, and anyone else who is employed by the central government or state government or private organizations, but has influence over this community, over these people. And anyone who has influence over the community is a leader, because whatever these leaders say, people will follow, and they have a very high power over these people. So we'll have to identify them first, then make a good friendship with them, with all these people. How I can? Yes, that is what we are called for. We have to meet these leaders, talk to them, build a very good relationship. And once you are sure that they have a very good respect for you and your relationship is stronger, then slowly you can start sharing your ideas, what you have for the children of that area, and get their support. Very importantly, we have to get their support. And without the support of the leaders, if you start children's parliament, at some point of time or other, there will be some problem cropping up, and which we have faced. And it will have, that problem will create a very high impact in the children parliament. So we have a good contact with them, and with their support, we start this program. And after having a good relationship with all these leaders, then we meet every parent individually, go to their house, talk to them, and make friendship with all the families in that particular neighborhood. Personal relationship is what is going to come a long way. And personal relationship with leaders and personal relationship with every family. The family may not be having a child, doesn't matter, but that family also matters a lot. Every person should be in a very good relationship with us. And once we create that relationship with every individual family, then slowly they themselves will ask you whether you can do something for their children. Because every parent's, the highest story of every parent is the future of their children and the studies about their children and education of their children. So automatically they will look for help from you to help their children. Automatically their children will be placed under you. And when we say building relationship, very, very important to speak their language. Very, very important. When I say speak their language, I am not talking the linguistic language part of it. Suppose I am a person who believes in Hindu ideology or Hindu faith. I belong to Hindu faith. Okay. I meet a Muslim Maulvi. When I meet him, I wish him, not in my own way, namaste, but in his language, say Assalamu alaikum. Why we use their language? The reason is they will own you. When we use their language, they own you. They start owning you. And for me, a Hindu person or a Christian, wishing a Muslim brother or sister as Assalamu alaikum, it doesn't show anything different than that I am really caring for them and for their welfare. And I respect their faith and belief and their language. And when I meet a Catholic priest or other denomination Christian pastors, if I wish them, praise the Lord, they will feel very happy. They will feel that you are part of them. And when you meet a Hindu pujari, I may be a religious person of other denominations. Say I may be a Christian, but when I meet him and wish him in his language, and especially in northern India, they always wish Ram Ram. And when you wish Ram Ram, that person feels that you belong to him and he belongs to you. That, that is a way that we respect people, each other. And this building relationship goes a far, far way, a long way to help you to make your objective perfect, sustainable. So we build a relationship with the leaders, then with the parents of every family. Then you come to the next stage of meeting the children. Children are always very fast. And you don't tell them that it is your idea, that we children come together and we make a children parliament and we are elected as minister and that and this. If it is your idea, people may find it difficult to buy the idea and they won't own the idea because it is yours. But rather, you create a situation where the children come together to discuss things and they arrive at that they have to come together. Let that be their idea. If that becomes their idea, the children will own the idea. And once the children own the idea, they will go to any length to ensure that they are part of it. And if it is your idea, they will say, that brother had come or that sister had come or that uncle had come or that auntie had come and he wanted us to come together. And they may like it or they may not like it, and they may own it or they may not own it. And finally, this will have certain negative impacts. So the process has to be that children start owning it. So usually what we do with the children is, we start, having discussion with them, general discussion about what they like and what they don't like and all. Then we give more focus. It is not done in one day. It may take few days. It doesn't matter, because we are working on a very noble cause. It may take some more time. Doesn't matter. But our objective is that it should be sustainable permanently. So we may take 2 months or 3 months, doesn't matter. But we'll have to lay the foundation such a way that it becomes sustainable on its own. And usually what we do is, we start the children, what they like and what they don't like. The liking part of it will be over, then what they don't like. And we start with the question, what they don't like in themselves. I mentioned this very specifically. This helps the children to study themselves, their inner selves. What I don't like in me. They will say, I fight with my brother, which I don't like. They will start discovering their inner self and start saying, these are the things which I don't like. You just listen. Don't make any comments, because children will, then afterwards they may not respond. So just listen to. Then after that is over, then we ask the second question, what you don't like in your family. Some may say, some may not say, doesn't matter. Don't force any child to say that. And see to that no comments on their answers are made, because these are very sensitive. And the children will say so many things they will say. And each has a very deeper meaning. And we'll have to be understanding enough to listen to them carefully, what they mean. And sometimes they want to mean something else than what they say. It's very, very important. They may say something, but they want to mean something else, which they may not feel comfortable to say in the open. So we have to be very sensitive enough to just listen to them. Then the third question is, what we don't like in our school. And when I conduct this program in the school, there may be some teachers sitting around. I tell the teachers, please teachers, go for a tea break and come back after 5 minutes, so that the children are free to answer. It's very, very important, because they feel when the teachers are around, they may not say openly what they don't like in the school. And they come out with hundreds of things. Then I ask them what they don't like in their neighborhood, and what they don't like in their village or in their city, and what they don't like in their state or country, and what they don't like in the whole world. And there are so many things. Then I ask them the question, okay, there are so many things which you don't like. Do you think you'll have to live with the things which you don't like? And everyone will say, no, we don't want to live with the things which we don't like. Then I ask them, then what shall we do? Some say we'll have to change this to the things which we like. Some may, so many answers will come. Then you guide the group such a way that they themselves decide to come into a group to set the things right. And once that has become, then it becomes their own idea, their own program, their own concept. And once they feel it is their own idea, their own decision, their own concept, and they stand for it. And they ensure that this children parliament happens very well. That's how it's a procedure. It's a procedure which has to be followed when we meet the children, whether in the school or in the neighborhood. So these are the procedures to be followed in the neighborhood also, because there are only two places where the children are predominantly spending their time. One is in the neighborhood, that is at home, in their own homes, or in the school. Now, how to start in the school? Again, there is certain procedure, and there are many people here from the school. And because some people show some interest, or some administrators or the correspondents, they show some interest, immediately call for some training from NCN or from anywhere else, and somebody comes and trains, then the school usually forms the children parliaments. But actually, there is certain procedure to be followed here also, which will be very, very useful. First, the management has to be given the idea what the children parliament is. Because sometimes there is a danger that a child may be used or misused or abused by the school management or the individuals in the school, in the school teachers or the management, using the children or misusing the children or abusing the children for their own benefit of the school. And that danger is, I don't say that everyone does it, there is a danger. So we have to be very, very careful about putting this concept to, talking about this concept to the management very clearly. Once the management is ready, then we have to organize an orientation course of at least one day to the teachers. What is this program about? Because most of the time in the schools, teachers always feel they are overburdened with lots of work. And if we say another program, oh my God, this sister doesn't have any other work. She brings on so many programs and putting on our head, and already we are so loaded with so much of work. Write this and write that and do this and do that. Already we don't have time, and they may not show interest. So there should be a thorough orientation for the teachers why we have children's parliament, and they should believe at the end of the orientation that children parliament is going to help the teachers. Definitely it is going to help the teachers, because I know in some places, in some cases, the teachers burden, load of teaching the children has come down, because the children themselves take the work of teaching the children. They do it much wonderfully. You know, when the children become teachers, they play a dual role as a student as well as a teacher, and they study much better. The learning capacity increases multifold. So the work of the teachers comes down. The teacher need not break their head, you know, making the children write their homework, that and this, study or by heart. No. Once we have a well-formed children's parliament, they take off of the load of the teachers. So once the teachers know what it is, they will support the program. Once they support the program, definitely the children parliament in the schools will be a success, definitely a success. And otherwise they will feel it is a burden. They will come with so many reasons not to conduct children's parliament. So this orientation is very important. And second, the orientation for the parents of the students, because it's very, very important. And without telling the parents and getting their consent of the parents for this program, if you start, some parents may come and ask you, see, we have sent our children to your school to study, not getting into this all type of funny works or funny things. So what we are aiming at, we have to have at least 2 to 3 hours orientation for the parents. Let the parents know what it is, why we have this children parliament. By having the children parliament, what the children are going to gain, in what way it is going to reflect in their families, and what way the parents are going to benefit out of this, in what way the community is going to benefit out of this, and all that. Once we have this 2 hours or 3 hours orientation to the parents, and in my own experience, I have conducted this similar orientation to the parents in many schools. Every parent says, yes, we want this parliament, children's parliament in the school for our children. And we ensure that it happens in the school. And we give the wholehearted support for this program in the school. So once we have the support of the teachers, support of the management, then support of the parents, then we start organizing this in our schools, then the children parliament program in the schools becomes successful. And one important factor here is that the children should not be divided according to the class or the age in the schools, because there is a tendency, it is easy to organize all the 5th standard student, one parliament, all the 6th standard student, another parliament, because that tendency is there. But here again, the children have to be divided according to the neighborhood they come from. That's very, very important when we have the children parliament in the schools. So we take a particular street, and the children, they may be studying 6th standard or 5th standard or 4th standard or 8th standard or 10th standard, but living in that same area. All those children will be divided, made into one neighborhood parliament. Suppose from the same street we have more number of children, then divide them according to the side of the street, the western side of the same street and the eastern side of the street, or something like that. Suppose there are only 4 or 5 children from the particular street, then you can take the neighboring street also, so that becomes a viable number of 20, 25 or something like that. But you organize such a way that these are called children's parliaments based on the neighborhood. It is done in the school. The school only trains them. The teachers take care of them. The teachers are in charge for the parliaments. And they conduct the meeting in the school, because once the school decides to have it, they have to allot one period, 1 hour of any day, whichever is convenient for them for this purpose, for their conducting training, conducting meeting and all that. So this all will happen in the school. But most of the interventions, the activities of the school, the children parliament will be in the neighborhood where the children live. For example, I want to share one experience of mine. There was a call from Delhi Public School chairman from Amritsar once, few years back. And he said, sir, we want to start children's parliament in our school. Then I said, okay, very good. And he asked me to come and to train the teachers and train the management and all that. Then I told him this all what to be done and the certain guidelines I gave him. Then we fixed a date. And before that, I wanted to know from him why he wanted children parliament in his schools. And they have number of schools, not only one school. They have number of schools in many states in North India. And in all the schools, they wanted to have this. You know what he said? Sir, our children are very smart in every aspect. So most of our children go abroad to studies, for higher studies. But when they apply for the higher studies in other universities in other countries, there is one column in the application where they ask, what is your community experience? And none of our children able to say anything in that column. And that column carries the highest mark in all that. So many of our children lose a chance attending a foreign university for higher studies because they don't have any community intervention or community experiences or community engagement. And because of that, I heard that the children parliament does a lot in the community, and we want our children to go through the process, to experience all that, so that they, when they fill the application for the foreign universities, they will be able to say, yeah, this is what we have done in our community. Very, very wonderful. So even in our schools, whichever school where we are going to start, the children should be able to understand their community, their own neighborhood, their own village, their own community, so that they are part of the community. They feel that they are part of it, and they have a role to play in that community, in their village, in their neighborhood. So that's how it is done in the schools. Now, coming to the most important aspect of the whole program is a movement approach. Movement approach is a permanent structure if it is done properly. So when we say movement, who will be part of the movement? Anyone. Anyone who is interested in the welfare of the community. Anyone who is interested in the welfare of the children. Anyone who is interested in the welfare of the larger group of people, the country, the system, can be part of it. And as I told you in the beginning, to be part of this program, you need not spend the whole day for it. You may be a student, you may be a religious person, you may be an employed person, or you may be an elected leader, or whatever you are. If you are interested in the welfare of your own community, your own neighborhood, you can do this. You can do this. And what you need is, for the first procedures of building relationship with the community people and the leaders, it may take 15 days to 1 month. And this 1 month may be the foundation for your work and foundation for the whole movement of this neighborocracy. And here you have to involve any number of people, whoever is having a good opinion about you or who is interested in this. It need not be only you. You can take your own volunteers around, your own friends, 2 people, 3 people together, and we can start together. And it's very, very important. The procedure is very important. And you'll have to take the leaders into confidence and the community, into every family into confidence. Otherwise, they themselves will be an objection for your obstacles for your own work at the later stage, because it is creating a power center. When power center shifts from individuals to a community, the people, those who have been enjoying the power so far, may not like these arrangements. So they may create an obstacle. So that's why we'll have to create a good relationship with them first and get their support for this. And once you have built the relationship with the leaders and the community, and with everyone's support, you start doing it. And once you start doing it, very bare minimum, that is 2 hours a week. It's not a big time. And we need not much worry that, that we'll be spending all our life. No, 2 hours a week. 1 hour for the meeting of the children and 1 hour for the training. That's all. And if we can contribute these 2 hours for our own community, I'm very, very sure in 3 years' time, you will see a very big change in the community. Very big change in the community. Definitely. And when we come to the school parliaments, I wanted to insist on this, because it's always we should have the community engagement and the community development in mind. And community is no other than individuals. And today's children and today's students are the community people in the future. And so we have to be very, very careful in this, and we'll have to allow this. When we start in the schools, it should not be only for the children, those who study in our schools. In the initial stage, we will be starting it in the schools with the children, those who are studying in our school. And they will be divided according to the neighborhood they come from. But in the same street, there may be other children who are studying in other schools. What about them? And once our parliaments become stronger, we have to ask our parliaments to involve the other children in the same parliament. The other children in their own neighborhood, the other children in their own street, wherever we have started, have to be part of it. And the school management has to encourage the parliaments to invite them. And that particular time, those children have to be involved in this children parliament, slowly, gradually, and they have to be part of the meetings and they have to be part of the trainings. So suppose when we involve the other children, also the other children, those who don't attend our school but attend some other school, when they all join, the parliament number may be big, doesn't matter. Once it becomes big, you can again divide them according to based on the immediate neighborhood and make it of a viable size and make it more vibrant. And this way, the school will engage in a very great community service. So this should not be only confined to our own children, our own students in our school. Because yes, our own children, our own students will bring a change, definitely. But there are children outside left in the same neighborhood. And that cannot be permitted, because even 2-3 children left out, and that doesn't come to that idea of a real children parliament, because they may not know what is happening and they may not be part of it. And then when we say community engagement, we may not come to that full term of community engagement. So we'll have to ensure that every child in the neighborhood has to be part of it over a period of time. So these are the way we have to start at the movement mode. And once we start the movement mode, any individual, and we can identify various other people, those who are doing similar work of starting children's parliament in various areas, and we get ourselves federated. we get ourselves networked so that the movement becomes not only confined to our neighborhood or our village or our street, but it becomes bigger and bigger and bigger. And we are ready to support you for this movement mode at any point of time. And we can, any one of you wants to start this as a movement mode, and you want to network with various other groups, those who are already doing it, and you can contact Father Justice, or you can contact me, or whatever it is, and we are ready to help you that way. And we will be very happy.